Hey, come up here and sit with. I want to thank everybody for coming, and before we get started, I'd like to ask Representative Matt Jackson to say a few words of prayer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Father, in the name of Jesus, as we come before you, we ask for your wisdom, your guidance, your direction as we do this business of this great state of Georgia. Lead and guide us by your Spirit. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. I do appreciate everybody coming on this Friday morning, and first of all, we'd like economic development.
Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. I'm John Moffett with the Department of Economic Development, and unfortunately, Commissioner Wilson could not be here, but he sends his regards and wants to make sure that he thanks you for all the great work you do for us as the state.
Get to go to Switzerland?
No, I didn't. I had to get cataract surgery, so I couldn't be here Wednesday either. I was feeling my way around. So.
Okay, all right.
So, I mean, real quickly, we're looking at the amended 23 budget. There's not a lot of items in there on our behalf. We're looking at House Bill 18, the tracking sheet. We're looking at 23. There's no changes in any of the divisions. There's only one small change in tourism, which is a redirection of the $7 million, and my good friend Kevin Duvall and Lindsay are here from World Congress Center that may be able to talk about that in a little more detail. But that's really the only item in our budget at this time for the amended.
Well, we had some people want an update on the Rivian project. Can you give us a little update on that?
Well, the update on the Rivian project, it's going through. We're meeting with them regularly. We're having meetings every Wednesday. It's going through. We're waiting on some final items on the zoning, and once that happens, we think we should be, moving along just fine.
Do you have an estimated time, or you just don't?
No, I mean, it's a few years out. There's a lot. I mean, you're talking about, all the land and everything. They started working with the land and everything like that and the grading, but then, you're talking about a major building and training center. So, I mean, I think we're talking, 25, 26 in that time frame.
Does anybody have a question on that? And the next thing that was referred to me that some people wanted was the details of the funding provided by Hyundai. Did I pronounce it right? Hyundai? Hyundai.
Okay. Well, that's... Okay.
I couldn't remember the name of the company.
Okay. Well, Georgia has been really promoting electrification and electric vehicles, and so... when you look at it, we've been very fortunate. We've landed two major players in that, in Rivian and Hyundai, and they're down in Southeast Georgia, Hyundai, and that's going to be, that was our biggest, Rivian was our biggest economic development project up to that, and then Hyundai surpassed it with about $5.5 billion in investment. And so that's moving very smoothly down in Southeast Georgia, down in the Savannah area. Big thing now will be workforce. We're talking a lot of jobs, a lot of supply chain, and so we're looking at that as two major, projects that have really put Georgia at the top of the heap with when you're talking about electric vehicles, and with SK and then Q cells and so much in renewable energy and things like that. Georgia is really becoming a leader in that area.
Well, I for one appreciate the work that y'all are doing, and it's just amazing the people that you've had to come to Georgia to do business.
Yeah. And
we appreciate it.
Well, we couldn't do it without the leadership, the governor's office, the House and the Senate. It is truly teamwork. DCA is there with us, working with us. The utility partners. It really comes down to. I look at our state and I talk to people in other states and. They're jealous of how we all work so well together. It really is a team effort, and everyone seems to collaborate and work together for the better of the state.
Do I have any questions? No questions.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming, and good luck on your cataract surgery.
Thank you.
The next we'll have Department of Community Affairs. Commissioner Nunn.
Okay. I might need a little help with that. Just goes in.
Yep.
Cataracts. Okay. Okie doke. Well, good morning. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you.
Always a privilege to be with you. And I am joined today by several of my outstanding DCA colleagues, Stephanie Green, our CFO, William Hughes, our Director of Accounting, and our new Director of External Affairs, Ryan Evans, who I hope all of you have had a chance to meet, and if not, look forward to introducing her. On behalf of this team and all of our colleagues at DCA, I want to thank you for the continued support that the legislature has shown for us, not only through the appropriations process, but just through engagement across the state. So thank you. For the past 2 years, I think it's fair to say that stimulus programs have been fairly overwhelming, and I will speak to those later. But if you'll allow, I want to just give you a little bit of an update on the impact that DCA has across the state. And for any new faces on this committee, we are the community development arm of the state, and we strive to help build strong, vibrant communities, and we do that through community and economic development, through safe and affordable housing, and through providing local government assistance. So in the area of community and economic development, I'll touch on our contributions to the state's economic development success, working closely with our colleagues at GDEC, as well as DOR, other state agencies, and of course all of the local leaders and authorities all across the state. As you heard from John, the state's been successful in locating a number of large-scale employers in all parts of the state. And while the state offers discretionary grants to only a small number of the total project announcements, the number of discretionary awards that we administer has nearly doubled in the last 4 years. Here, I don't have time to go through all of the programs, and I do have a guide to services if you're interested that goes through all of the programs that DCA is responsible for. But I want to touch on the One Georgia Authority, which is an important tool in economic development all across the state. And of course, this is focused on rural economic growth. You can see that the One Georgia is busy investing all across the state. As an example of impact, in 2022, we made a relatively small investment in Evans County to help them to enhance some of their industrial capacity, and that paid near immediate dividends with a local project announcement with a number of new jobs in that community in a rail-served industrial park. Another investment in Stevens County supported a well-honed local vision to expand industrial capacity and meet the needs, and a strategy that interestingly also includes a workforce housing component that the Development Authority has invested in nearby. This map, which represents just the last 4 years of investment, all of those counties that are shaded in gray have applied for and received One Georgia funding. The EDGE, Equity, and Rural Innovation Awards are depicted in blue circles, green triangles, and red diamonds, respectively. And that sounds like a Lucky Charms commercial as I say it. As I move on, I want to talk a little bit about safe and affordable housing. Housing is a complex issue. And in the area of safe and affordable housing, DCA administers a host of programs, many federally funded, ranging from homeless assistance to home ownership. The primary tool to develop and rehab affordable housing stock today is the housing tax credit. Now, tax credits are not synonymous with rental assistance. These properties house employees of Kubota, Purdue Farms, Amazon, FLETC, the Georgia Ports Authority, Parker's Markets, Publix. I can go on and on. That's just to name a few. Credits are awarded to developers through competitive processes, and they reduce the debt load associated with construction or rehab. In return, communities benefit from affordable rent. So tax credit properties are required to maintain rents at a level that is affordable to families whose incomes are below the area median. So think seniors, think families whose breadwinners are employed in food service, food processing, hospitality, retail, manufacturing, ag, just to name a few of the industries where wages tend to align with housing made possible through tax credits. Since 2018, DCA has financed 347 developments totaling 39,398 units of housing. Approximately 2/3 of these are new construction and 1/3 are rehab of existing properties, and all are depicted here on the map. Investment understandably tracks with areas of need and population growth, but you'll also note that this investment is truly statewide. I will briefly touch on local government assistance programs such as downtown development, which, Madam Chair, includes things like the rural zones and the Main Street program that are so important to our rural communities. Historic preservation and others are important tools for the local governments that we serve. Given the number of state and federal programs that are available to local leaders, we do maintain a regional staff to help those local officials navigate all of these available resources. These folks live and work in the communities that we serve. So on to the budget, and I'll start with really the only request in the budget that has a fiscal impact. And I believe this is on line 16.11.1 in your tracking sheet under State Economic Development. So the governor has recommended a $166,718,534 amendment to address 3 specific large-scale economic development projects that are beyond the scope of our typical activity. Last year, you approved a request for land acquisition and site development for Rivian. This line item includes some overage on the Rivian project, which you asked about earlier, as well as funding for Hyundai in Bryan County and the recently announced $4 billion project in Bartow County. I said $4 billion project in Bartow County. These are large-scale projects, and these funds specifically are intended to be used for a combination of land acquisition and site development. When you think site development, think about environmental remediation and actually moving dirt to make large tracts of land accessible and available for the purpose of the intended purpose of economic growth. The next line item I'll refer you to is at 16.13.1 is simply a recommended program transfer, including the budgeted funds, from DCA to GDOT. The corresponding transfer for this $351,000 and change is located in the GDOT budget under CERTA, which is found in line 47.16.1 in the transportation budget. So returning to lines on your tracking sheets to lines 16.3.1 and 16.3.2, you'll find recommendations to utilize existing funds to modernize the DCA website and also to maintain existing cost allocation structure for enterprise admin. The latter, I believe, is a clarification to a request that we made during budget development. The former, while I'm unclear as to the root of the recommendations, is directly impacted by the latter. And we certainly appreciate that DCA's website is currently subpar. In fact, an upgrade has been on our priority list for several years. However, we've had to cut it each year due to cost and time constraints. Scarcity of time is really a function of the stimulus programs that have been all-consuming, and I will speak to. Scarcity of funds relates to the fact that DCA is strapped to cover its enterprise admin costs. In fact, our website is not the only issue, because several of our applications for some of our other, and I think I lost my presentation there, probably says I'm talking too long, right, Madam Chair? But several of our applications that support things like authority and local government reporting and other state-specific requirements are in similar shape. Currently, we are in the process of upgrading our back-end technology from an outdated version of Drupal, and that's a coding language, to Drupal 10. And that's the precursor for future custom development work, but the actual cost of that is not entirely clear. In 2020, we received estimates of approximately $100,000 for this work, but that does not include some of the additional dashboard functionality that we would like to incorporate. In fact, our website is a hierarchical beast. Though aesthetically lacking and sometimes functionally clunky, it is a content-rich clearinghouse of information for local governments, developers, and other stakeholders. The site has more than 6,500 unique pages, more than 14,000 files, 7,600 lines of custom code, and nearly 50 gigabytes of data. Information from 540 cities and counties and all 540 cities in all 159 counties is already or is maintained on our site. And so it is really important that we keep that available and up to date. Again, some of this work is already underway, and we completely concur that the website is in dire need of updating. We do have some concerns about our ability to fund it at this point in time, and we look forward to working with everyone on a solution here. Finally, if you move down to, and I think I jumped a page on my presentation. Finally, if you move down to the last item in our budget recommendations, we are really excited about the recommendation to propose or to repurpose some existing One Georgia funds to launch a rural workforce housing initiative. In 2020, really in anticipation of some federal funds that never materialized, we began working on a single-family workforce housing initiative. The current housing needs that we see all across the state didn't materialize overnight, nor will they be solved quickly. And as the governor has traveled all around the state talking to employers and employees alike, he recognized and hears constantly about the need for workforce housing. This is a pervasive issue across states, and few states have figured out how to address. I'm excited about the fact, and I think there's no better example of our economic development leadership than to work on addressing this important issue. So some states like Nebraska have experienced success with similar programs, and with your support, we look forward to launching Georgia's program, which will leverage DCA's subject matter expertise and infrastructure to partner with local governments, as well as developers who are necessary to construct housing, and we look forward to doing this through a program that will help to address community needs related to land, infrastructure, and also construction finance. Of course, we hope that this infusion will also beget additional rural housing investment to meet the needs of a growing workforce. The roughly $35.7 million in investment would come from two already funded programs in One Georgia. The broadband program has been, as you heard from Jessica Simmons earlier this week, eclipsed by federal funds. And while it is our belief that those broadband funds may be useful at some point in the future to address needs that are not eligible for federal funding, this recommendation acknowledges that housing is a more critical priority and immediate need, hence the expectation to sweep those broadband funds into this rural housing initiative. With respect to the Rural Innovation Fund that launched in fiscal year 2022, we continue to receive on a quarterly basis many and a wide variety of proposals for these funds, though the authority has been very judicious in its use of public funding. Chairman Hatchett and Chairman Tillery sit on the review committee, and they can attest that we have funded fewer than 20% of the applications that we have received, and as a result, there are also residual funds in the Rural Innovation Program, approximately $14.2 million from FY22, that the governor also seeks to repurpose for this initiative. So I will repeat, the $35.7 million is already appropriated, and the request is that we repurpose those funds to focus on a critical need of workforce housing. As you requested, and as I already accidentally flipped to, I will touch on I'll quickly touch on several additions in last year's budget. The $5,000 increases across the board have been extremely helpful, and we thank you for your commitment to our people and for that addition. We also received $17,250,000 for a rural downtown development grant program. We awarded 9 grants in June of 2022, totaling $17.25 million in every corner of the state. We also received several line items. You see the $35,000, the $200 for programs around the state to address homelessness and hunger initiatives. All of those funds have been paid, with the exception of the second half of FY23 payments to the 2 providers that are included in the $45,000 FY23 budget amendment. We've already touched on the Rivian project development grant that was in last year's budget. And then there were 2 line items in the One Georgia budget last year. The first was funding for a Lake Allatoona water storage agreement, and that is simply awaiting contract execution with the Corps of Engineers. And then there were 2 subsequent reductions of funds in the broadband program, and those are reflected in the number that we are recommending to be swept for workforce housing. Last and certainly not least, I want to touch on our stimulus programs as I mentioned. I'm not going to go long. DCA has administered, or is in the process of administering, 3 stimulus programs: emergency rental assistance, which has nearly exhausted available funding; mortgage assistance for homeowners, which has thus far expended about $110 million of available federal funding; and the State Small Business Credit Initiative, which is in the process of launching phase 2 of a successful 2011 program, this time using ARPA funds. Unlike CRF or the fiscal recovery funds in ARPA, these funds are restricted and heavily prescribed by Treasury. So in the case of mortgage and small business, we were able to submit plans for Treasury's approval. With rental assistance, we simply executed a Treasury-directed program. I only am sharing some information here about rental assistance because I know that that has been a topic that many of you have reached out to us about. And despite what you may have heard, the 700 or so people that have worked on this program for the last 2 years have done yeoman's work. And I am proud of the fact that I'm proud of them, and I'm proud of the fact that we have been able to help more than 56,500 families and households across the state, that we have dispersed approximately $1 billion in 2 years. And I've got to give credit where it is due to our partners, our community partners, including the 12 local programs that Treasury established. Together, we've deployed almost $1.3 billion. DCA alone received about 186,000 applications and has touched all 159 counties in the state. However, this program is limited by the amount of funding that was made available through Congress. And of course, all of us appreciate that one-time funds don't solve an issue that existed pre-pandemic, especially in times of rent inflation and increased housing demand. I'm happy to answer any questions about any or all that is going on at DCA, including the budget. Madam Chair, that concludes my prepared remarks.
Representative Bonner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner, just a couple of quick questions on the 166 million, do you have a breakdown by project of how that's allocated?
I can get that from our team and share that. I don't have the precise breakdown by project. Again, all of those funds are reimbursement funds, so really what we get is an award contract that is executed, and then we get invoices that we reimburse. So usually I have the detail on the back end of that. So I'll have to get with our team at GDEC to get that information.
Okay, that'd be great. Then just a question on a different topic. On the rental assistance programs, is that money going to the tenant, or is that money going directly to the landlord?
So again, this is a federally prescribed program. The order of priority is ideally these funds are ACH payment directly to the landlord. Secondarily, these payments are a check cut directly to the landlord. If the landlord chooses not to participate, and that has been the case in a number of circumstances, then a check is cut to the tenant to make payment or to address their housing needs. So that's the order of priority, and the answer is both.
Got it.
The
Thank
short
you.
answer.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions? I've got a question. In the broadband fund,
Yes, ma'am.
I know we were so fortunate that the governor had grants for lots and lots of towns and counties, and I was lucky to get, in my local delegation, some money. All this money has not been used, right? Don't they have to provide, do we still have enough money to cover it if we move this stuff out of innovation?
Yes, so fantastic question, and I'll touch briefly on broadband. As you know, we have been working on a broadband program in conjunction with our colleagues at the Georgia Technology Authority. I think Jessica Simmons has already spoken to this, but in 2018, we took a lead on mapping our broadband need, which was fantastic. In the FY21, and you may have to check my time frame. In the FY21 budget, we were appropriated $20 million from the state to address broadband needs, and that was really intended to pilot. It was fantastic timing that we had all of the data in place at the time, 2 months later, when the federal government announced both ARPA funds, and the governor had set aside about $450 million in ARPA funds to address broadband, and then subsequently the capital projects funds, which I believe is another $215 million. So there's been a substantial amount of funding invested at the federal level to address broadband needs across the state. That's important because when we first mapped, we had about 500 and some odd thousand locations in the state of Georgia, mostly rural, that lacked broadband access. The funds that for the state program have been held in reserve because they simply were eclipsed by 450 and 211 million in federal funds. And so we are confident that there's no issue with getting existing projects done because those projects are being funded with federal dollars, not with the One Georgia money.
All right, let me ask you one other question. What is your definition for the population of a rural county?
The One Georgia definition for the population of a rural county is 50,000 people. You and I have had a lot of conversations about this over the years, and I laugh because there are probably, and I don't know this for a fact, but I think within USDA, I think there are about 23 different definitions, and that's just in one federal agency. 50,000 is the working definition in One Georgia for rural county.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Representative Gulick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Quick question about One Georgia. So as we're transferring money, or it looks like maybe not even transferring money, but going towards rural workforce housing, can you explain what One Georgia is? Is it just a pool of money to do different things, and then you're just adding kind of a task force or something related to workforce housing, and that's what the money's going to be more defined as related to this, or is there something or am I not completely understanding that?
Yeah, no, thank you. Appreciate the question. So, One Georgia is a tool intended to address the needs in rural Georgia, and that is broadly defined. We have two, I call them mature programs that exist. Those are EDGE and Equity that tend to focus on economic development needs. So EDGE provides us with funding to provide discretionary incentives for projects that are interested and willing to locate in rural Georgia. Equity provides capacity building funds, like the example I gave in Evans County, or we could talk about in Thomas County, or we could talk about all across the state, where we will go in and help a community to get ready for economic growth. So it's not an existing project, but it's to prepare them. The broadband funds were specific, intended for this purpose. The innovation funds could perhaps be interpreted and to address housing, but given the specificity of focus on workforce housing, that's why we have proposed a new program that would leverage, again, DCA's housing expertise and subject matter expertise, but would focus on workforce housing. So it is broadly within the authority of One Georgia, and those funds we're just trying to specify for that purpose. Does that answer your question?
Follow-up question, please.
Yeah, I think it does. But just to sort of, with the One Georgia, I think of it almost like a pool of money that you guys do different things with or have before. Is there something, as we transfer that out, that was, when it was allocated, when you said you needed this much money for that pool, is there something that we're no longer going to do that leaves that amount of money there, that now we're going to focus on workforce housing?
Yeah, no, that's a so fantastic question. Is there anything left to be undone? Because of that. So, two pools of funds intended to be swept into this program. Right. The broadband, I said, we have held those funds in reserve because there may be some future need that is not being addressed by federal funding. There is a lot of federal money available for broadband at the moment, right. and all of that has been awarded, and we will continue to work on those projects. We are confident that that is a judicious use of funds to sweep those funds. So I'm confident that that is not a task left undone. Rural broadband is an important priority to the governor and to the state. On the rural innovation, all we are proposing to sweep is the funds that were left over after the FY22 cycle. Those funds, I said we've received a number of applications. We've funded roughly 20% of those, the $14 million and change that we're recommending there. It is not leaving anything undone. It is simply taking those funds from the FY22 budget. Did I understand and answer the question?
Right. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I think it might help him. Didn't the Innovation Fund, it had like $39 million in it, and that's down to 14, correct?
I believe that's correct, yes.
Maybe it would help him if he saw what we'd spent the Innovation Fund on. I think that might help him understand it a little bit better.
Absolutely. And I'm sorry I closed. It's depicted in the red dots on your map, but I can't tell you what each red dot represents, so I'll have to come back to you with that.
Okay, if you'll get with Representative Gullett.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Thank you, and thank you for the job you're doing, and I know it's lots of little irons in the fire, but you're doing a great job.
On behalf of the team, thank you all.
Thank you. World Congress Center. Well, I was expecting Mr. Frank Pope, but I'm so glad you could come.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
And Lindsay, thank you, Mrs. Strickland.
How are you? Oh, thank you.
No.
you're ready. Madam Chair, thank you. Appreciate that. Good morning to you and the subcommittee. I'm Kevin Duvall with the World Congress Center Authority on behalf of Frank Poe, who could not be here today. He sends his regrets, but he also said to say hello to you, and thank you for allowing us to be here today to talk about this. As John Moffitt mentioned, in the amended budget under tracking sheet 2391, it redirects $7 million that will enable the World Congress Center to replace and modernize 9 escalators that have exceeded their 20 to 25-year life expectancy or in poor or critical condition from our perspective. A little bit of background on the World Congress Center and really our vertical transportation. I know you've been there before, but we do have quite a few units in our vertical transportation grouping there. We have 71 escalators that are in service. The in-service dates of those units range from 1982 through 2008, as noted on the packet in front of you and on the slide up on the screen. The focus of this redirection will allow us to address 9 of the escalators placed in service in 1982. Escalators beyond this continue to be our #1 priority for replacement. They are our #1 priority for OPB and the Governor's Office for the FY24 capital budget request. As you know, we rely on this transportation to move thousands of attendees throughout the facilities. In addition to our very important trade show and convention customers, one of which we gave you a letter on next week, we will host some of the very high-profile events in the very near future with the CFP National Championship game and also the FIFA World Cup in 2026. In May of last year, we recently had some failures. This is one of the more pronounced failures. We had a step failed on one of our escalators during a show, MomoCon show that we had in the facility. Fortunately, the step failed as we had folks on there, but nobody was injured as part of this. However, the unit was down for months just due to not having availability of parts being readily available for us because of the age of the units. And finally, I think you might recognize this location. This is the escalators to the Thomas Murphy Ballroom. Hopefully you were there just recently for the Eggs and Issues event, kickoff event that we host each year. In October, both of these escalators units failed and we were out of service for 3 months. This impacted about 7 events and caused us to use both interior and exterior stairs, emergency stairs, to circulate attendees in and out of the ballroom. We're fortunate to have these units running in time for the new year and also authorize self-funding replacement of these units as they're critical to the use of our ballroom space and also critical to our event logistics. The redirection of the $7 million will enable us to replace 9 additional units as we don't have sufficient capital to self-fund those units also. I'm happy to answer any questions and I appreciate your time today.
Any questions? Representative Bonner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If we know what the life cycle of these are we not able to set aside funds on an annual basis in order to address these rather than?
Excellent question. Clearly, each year any money we make, we try to reinvest in the facilities. It's a matter of scope and scale. When you go in and start replacing escalators, as you saw, we have 26 units that are 1982 version, and so it requires trying to replace as many as you can at one time, and we just don't have sufficient capital to go in and replace a chunk, my words, of those at one time. So
yeah, and understand that, and then just a question because I don't know is, does our budgeting process allow for you to set aside in your own budget monies for these capital improvements given the known life cycle of equipment?
We certainly can do that. It won't allow for a lot. I failed to mention that we do have a contractor, Kone, that has 4 full-time technicians that work on all our units. We spend about $1 million a year in that area between maintenance and replacement parts to try to upkeep them and extend the life of them, but certainly we could give that a shot, and we intend to, in the future, as we bring the hotel online, to have some other capital influx to help us with certain projects around the World Congress Center.
And then last thing, I don't, I wouldn't think that this committee would necessarily be opposed to any proposals that would help to offset the supply chain issues by stocking up on certain items, things like that, that we know, routinely go out or break, things like that. That may help, with that downtime. I mean, certainly 3 months, I would, if I owned a property, I would say that's unacceptable, right? So I think that we could certainly do some things, I think, to help mitigate that.
I would agree. A great suggestion. We have done that in certain areas on certain pieces of equipment, but the different ages, we can continue to do that, though. Great idea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one quick question. I know that maintenance is important on buildings. Where are you on the roof? And we had some problems with the roof of the building
Yes, sir.
last year.
Yes, sir.
Where are we now?
We're underway on roofing. We're presently working over top of Building A, but for weather and weaving in and around events, we continue that process. So we were very thankful for the cash that we received from the legislature for that project, and we'll continue to do that project. Obviously, it's over 1 million square feet of roofing that we have to put in place, but we are continuing to do make steady progress on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One other question. What is the status of the hotel we're building over there?
Well, I'm glad you asked. I'm super excited about that. The 975-room Signia by Hilton is still on target to open with substantial completion this December. And so,
December of this year?
December of 2023, yes, ma'am. And then we will be hosting folks, inclusive of IPP, next January.
Refresh me on how you'll get income back from that.
Absolutely. I appreciate you asking. The World Congress Center made a equity infusion into that capital stack to help us achieve and be able to do the hotel. As part of that, as the owner of the hotel, and the year 5, we anticipate we'll have enough residual income coming off that to help us alleviate some of the pressures on the overall budget to help self-fund more of our projects at the World Congress Center.
So if we can just hold on to 2005, we'll do good.
Well, 2029, we should be in a good position with it opening in January of 24.
Well, any other questions? Thank you, and thank
Appreciate
you for
it.
what y'all doing and for all the money you bring into Georgia.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Commissioner Harper. Well, congratulations on your election, and we're mighty glad to have a farmer as ag commissioner.
Well, I am, Madam Chair Lady, I am glad to be there. And it's an honor to be the 17th Ag Commissioner for the great state of Georgia, and it's just an awesome opportunity to represent our state's #1 industry and work with you all to ensure that our state continues to be successful. So, and I look forward to making that happen and ensuring our #1 industry continues to be successful. So it's good to be with you this morning. So good to see all of you in a different capacity now. Really quick, just to start out with our budget and where we are in FY23. There's the clicker. I hit, well, the clicker's not working. Let me use this. That'll work. I hit on most of this in the main presentation to the Appropriations Committee, so I'm pretty well going to just breeze through that. We talked about most of the issues in regards to my particular report and what we have going on at the Department of Agriculture, but if you got any questions, be happy to answer them, and obviously look forward to our work together and between our department and the legislature to ensure that we have the resources we need to do the job that we've been tasked to do every single day.
Well, I know
Yes,
you
ma'am.
talked about some of your greatest needs. Can you tell me what your highest priority need is in the amended budget?
Yes, ma'am. I'm getting there. We'll get there. So,
Okay, the highest priority need.
yes, ma'am. So in the FY23 budget, there were no no additional inclusions in the governor's budget, but we do have some requests in the FY23 budget. And so those are, as you see right in front of you on the screen, as many of you know, we passed the raw milk bill last year, was passed by the General Assembly. It goes into effect on July 1. And so to get that program up and running, we're going to have some resources for staffing, for laboratory equipment, among other things, to get that program off the ground and off and running. So we'll be ready to go on July 1 to allow it to be successful. That request you see in front of you is a little over $776,000 to give us the opportunity to be able to get that up and going. The other request that we have is in regards to the Tifton Lab and recommissioning the Tifton Lab to ensure that it continues to be successful in providing the mission that we need to be providing to our ag community around the state. That request is for $150,000 and to bring up the lab to where it needs to be. That is an accredited lab, and we want to ensure that we maintain the credibility, the integrity of the lab for it to be able to maintain its mission. And so we're asking for those funds to allow us to bring to address the issues we have at the lab, to ensure that it continues to be operational and provide the services that it needs to provide. The last thing that I will mention in regards to FY23, and we'll really have more conversation about this in the big budget, but I mentioned this when I spoke to the full committee earlier this week. I met with all of our team at the Department of Agriculture, all the division directors, and the number one issue that I heard from all of them were the issues of salary, recruitment, and retention. And that's a significant issue that we're facing within the department, and I've asked our team for a lot of that information to figure out where we are. We also commissioned, or the department did before I got there, commissioned a salary study on how we compare to our other counterparts in state departments of agriculture across the country in the Southeast. And I will tell you, on the initial information that we have received back and what we're going through and working through, we're behind our friends in Alabama and Florida and Tennessee and South Carolina, and so our staff, when you compare our team to our counterparts in other places, we're not adequately funded, and we're not paying our folks in the same manner that some of our counterparts around the Southeast are paying their staff. So this is a holistic conversation that we want to have. We're working to put some information together to be able to present to you in a more concise form, so you can understand what that looks like. But this is definitely something that we believe we need to look at and try to find ways to address, because at the end of the day, when it comes to the Department of Agriculture and the role that we play in ensuring that ag is successful in our state, our folks in the field are the ones that are inspecting our meat processing facilities and food processing facilities, and they're the ones that are ensuring that our food is safe and that those supply chains are operational. And we want to bring more business to our state, and we want to ensure that our state continues to be successful. And we're the number one state to do business. Agriculture is a lot of the reason we're the number one state to do business. It's the number one industry in our state. And so we need to ensure that I have the resources and the team in place, so when those businesses do come to our state, we're able to service those businesses and provide the businesses the services that they deserve as being part of our state and being a great place to do business. So I would tell you that the role that we play is vital and important in the economic engine of this state, and I look forward to working with all of you to ensure that continues to be the case. And I appreciate the work that we've done together for the last 10 years to get us to where we are, but I look forward to the work that we can continue to do to ensure that agriculture is successful, our state is successful, and I'm just happy to play a small part in all of that, and look forward to working together to make that happen. So, Madam Chairman, that's my report. I know we have a couple of attached agencies you're going to hear from in just a minute, but I appreciate the committee. I appreciate the work that you do, and look forward to our work together.
Well, thank you. And do I have any questions? Representative Bonner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Commissioner, could you flip back to the second page of your...
Yep. That one?
No, one prior to that.
This one?
I just want to commend you, Mr. Commissioner, primarily your photographer.
They did a really good job of making this look
what
good,
a
I
fine
can tell you.
job they have done to make you look respectable.
I appreciate that.
And I mean, that's just a good-looking commissioner right there.
I do what I can. Well, I appreciate that. It would have only made it look better if I had some of y'all in the picture with me, Representative.
I think we're just out of frame. I think they cropped
Is
us
that
out,
what it
so
is?
I appreciate that, Mr. Commissioner.
Thank you.
Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Congratulations, Commissioner, and we look forward to you doing a great job. Can you help us with the price of eggs?
Representative, that's a good one. Definitely. Look, here at the end of the day, you know, we want to work every day to ensure that we're keeping prices as low as we can at the grocery store and allowing consumers to have access to quality food at a reasonable price. And the way we do that is ensuring that we're supporting our farmers and producers across this state and investing in them, ensuring they have the resources they need to do what they do every day in the most affordable and efficient manner also. And while doing that, we can ensure that the supply chains are intact and we can keep prices low at the grocery store. But that's a tough one. But definitely that is our vision at the department. My vision at the department is working to ensure that the ag industry has the resources it needs to ensure that our food supply is the safest, securest, most affordable food supply in the world. And we're going to work to do that every single day. And by protecting and promoting and ensuring that our Georgia farmers and producers and American farmers and producers and investing in American agriculture and investing in Georgia agriculture, we can make that happen. And investments in the Department of Agriculture help us do that too, and giving us the resources to ensure that they're successful. And I look forward to our work together and making that happen every single day.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you for coming.
Thank y'all very much. Glad to be with you and appreciate what y'all do and look forward to our work together. We'll see you soon.
Georgia Poultry Lab. Dr. Zavala, nice to have you back.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Thank you to the members of the committee. My name is Dr. Louise DeFore Zavala. I'm the director of the Georgia Poultry Lab in Gainesville. We do a lot of tests for poultry. We make sure they can move from one place to the other, domestic and international, and we do a lot of disease control testing. I'd like to address that egg price thing, if you let me, and add to what the commissioners say. Eggs are things. The price of egg is tremendous. It has tripled or so in the past 6 to 8 months. And unfortunately, a lot of that is because of the very large bird flu outbreak in this country and around the world. We have an unprecedented avian influenza outbreak right now in this country. Since February of 2022, we've euthanized 57 million birds in the country, of which 43 million were commercial layers, which are the birds that lay those eggs that you're talking about. So supply and demand, there's less eggs, they're going to cost more. And what has made that even worse is the price of feed and supply chain and everything else together with that. But bird flu had a lot to do with that, unfortunately.
Have you identified where it came from?
The virus is in wild birds. And what's different about it this year is it's normally just in waterfowl. And they come and they migrate and they contaminate the environment. Unfortunately, this year it's in 149 species of birds, from pelicans to crows to ducks to owls to eagles. So there's an enormous virus load in the environment. So the poultry farms have to increase their biosecurity and, have to control their visitors, have to do animal control, peri-domestic animal control to prevent the virus from affecting them. But yeah, the source of the virus is wildlife. And there's more virus in wildlife this year than there has ever been. So that's part of your answer anyway.
Well, I know, I guess it was last year we had an outbreak of a virus here in Georgia, and
Yes.
Have we had another outbreak, anything in Georgia?
As part of this outbreak, which has been lasting since February, we're a year into the outbreak now, and Georgia's had 2 cases. Both cases were non-commercial poultry, though. One was a sanctuary, and the other one was a large backyard flock.
And I have to compliment everybody for being right on it when it was discovered. Y'all did a wonderful job.
Yeah, well, thank you. But that commissioner is an incredible partnership between us and the department and the state veterinarian. I mean, she's handling these things like a champ, and it's just been really neat to see that. We're on the phone every week, what's going on with bird flu. Just yesterday, there was an announcement of a case in Virginia, turkeys. And that scares us, because that's in our flyway, and the migratory birds, if they infected Virginia, they're in the same flyway as Georgia. So we're watching it like hawks, no pun intended. So I'd like.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wait, I have a question. Representative Tarbin.
Yeah, I won't use a microphone, and I'm a little bit hard of hearing, and my memory's getting bad, so this may not be the proper time, but our new, not so new poultry lab, did we resolve we had a positive negative pressure problem and then the leaks, and did all that get resolved?
We did. Thank you to all of you for that. That was 3 years ago that our building failed. Yeah. The vibration and the air control, basically issues. We had positive, negative, like you said. Positive was negative, negative was positive, and it was just a disaster.
We wanted negative.
And we got, so yes, we got the funds, we got all this fixed, and we passed every test since then. So thank you for asking. That was a big deal. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So I'd like to make you aware of a request that did not make it to the governor budget this year. The lab, well, I already talked about what we do, but we're really doing very well. For those of you that are new, we're a line item under the Georgia Department of Agriculture. We're under contract with them to run this laboratory for the poultry industry. And we do more and more tests, and we're more and more involved in field activities. We're just busier and busier, and it's great. It's just a fantastic industry to be involved in. The bird flu outbreak, I was going to mention that, but I already did. This is a big, big concern. So you're probably going to hear more about that. If it's not in the news, you're going to hear it from me or from Commissioner Harper. A lot of the costs that we incur at the lab are shared with the industry. Just this past year, because of all that you know about prices of everything going up, we increased our fees to the poultry industry by 8%, which was unprecedented. We've never increased them this high. But it's really a partnership, where costs are shared. Where it becomes an issue for us is our budget rarely allows for one-time huge expenses. That's where we struggle with. And those are really difficult to budget, especially if they're not yearly recurring expenses. And because we're a nonprofit, we can't just put the money somewhere and stash it for next year or the year after. So our top priority in this mindset is a robot arm. We have 2 robots at the poultry lab that run about 1 million of the tests that we run. And both of them run all the time. About 400,000 of those are for bird flu. And our older robot is 15 years old. That's really old for a robot. It still works, but it no longer communicates with the new software. So before it truly fails, we're trying to be proactive. We'd like to replace the robot arm so that the software can talk to the arm so that we can continue doing these hundreds of thousands of tests that we do for the industry. So that would be my top priority. It's about $75,000 for this robot arm to be replaced. Our second request is for 5 vehicles. We have our own fleet. Our vehicles are not state vehicles. And because of our increase in the past 3-4 years in field work, we're really putting the miles on these vehicles, and all of a sudden, we've got 5 that have really high mileage. So it would also be very helpful to be able to replace 5 of our vehicles with new ones. And that's what I'd like for you to consider. Thank you so much for all you do for us. I'll take any questions.
Do I have any questions? Thank you, and thank you for the job
Thank
you're
you.
doing.
Thank you so much.
Georgia Agriculture Authority, this is really the fair and fair, if you wonder what it is. Well, thank you, Lori.
I won't do this weekend.
Well, good morning, and thank you for having us. I'm Lori Dowd. I'm the CFO at the Ag Expo Authority, and I brought Kelly Owen with me. He's our livestock director. Our executive director, Stephen Shemp, he couldn't be with us today, but he definitely wanted to send his regards for you all. So a little bit of background for those of you who may not know who we are. Yes, we do put on the fair. We have been in operation for nearly 40 years. We were created to promote and showcase Georgia's agricultural business and encourage agricultural education and achievements for Georgia's youth. So all in all, we host about 200 events every year and have over 1 million people attending those events. We generate about a little over $9 million annually in tax revenue. And today, of course, our biggest event is the Georgia National Fair in October. It's an 11-day event. Today, we're here requesting 2 things, really. One is $2.8 million for capital, which includes phase 1 of design of an additional sheep, swine, and goat barn and arena to support the growing interest in agricultural and livestock education and the projects of our youth.
Could you tell us what page that's on?
Oh, yes, ma'am, sorry.
I didn't see it.
It is starting on about the 6th and 7th page. I have everything listed out, and then on the 8th page, I've got just a summary of what we're asking for. It's that blue section, Chair Houston, that page you just passed. Yes, ma'am. Go back one. This one. That's it. That's the summary. The 2 pages before that have the detail of everything. Mm-hmm. So as I said, we're asking $2.8 million capital. The biggest portion of that is $1.5 million for phase 1, which is the design phase of an additional sheep, swine, and goat barn and arena. And that's to support the growing interest in the agricultural and livestock education and projects of the youth, especially those small species animals. And also $840,000 for 2 monumental LED signs and the replacement of the downtown Perry sign in order to provide informational and directional news for events. Oftentimes, we have multiple events going on across our facility and grounds in multiple buildings. So we really need to have an easy way to get that information out to people of where they need to be and where they need to go. Our sign right now, one of those would be in the northwest corner. We currently do not have any kind of digital sign there in that northwest corner. And then at the northeast entrance, we have one of the old antiquated where you actually go out and you put the plastic letters on the sign. Another $500,000 of that request is for the expansion of the Deep South RV Park, which to include 50-amp capability in order to accommodate one, Rheinhofer, our fair ride provider, and other large shows such as the Youth World, which is a national show that calls our facility home. Recent shows, we've had over 900 RVs on our facility, and the power's maxed out, so we're having to turn some folks away. Our second request is for additional appropriation. Pre-COVID, we got about $1 million annually. We're currently budgeted for about $900,000. I think it's $899,000 for FY24. We would just like some additional appropriation in order to assist with providing that $2,000 cost of living increase for our 68 full-time benefit eligible employees, and we need that in order to recruit and retain employees. Our turnover rate in FY22 was 31%, and currently we pay around 8% below what other employers in our area are paying.
Well, we're working on the amended budget. What is your number one priority in the amended budget?
Number one in the amended budget, I would say would be probably getting this design phase going. Because like right now, I brought Kelly with me. He has a lot more detail on that small species information and all. Like for instance, what's the show? The state show coming up has over 27.
To give you an idea of our small animal species, we currently have 2 small animal species barns. Those barns will together house 854 pens. We're currently doubling and tripling. Our state show that we have in February with 4-H and FFA, we have 2,118 pigs alone to house in 854 pens. The Department of Agriculture and everyone were supporting agriculture so much in school that it's growing. A lot of schools are building small farms. On these small farms at the schools, they can handle more small animal species than they can large animals. So they're not bringing in a lot of cattle, they're bringing in a lot of pigs. You know, where you could have 10 cows, you can have 100 pigs, which are given the youth more opportunity and more youth opportunity to exhibit and show their projects. Pigs, they cost less, they eat less. It's about a 6-month project. With these farms, these school farms, we are reaching a lot of urban kids, a lot of non-agriculture kids that are coming in, and they're learning the responsibility of taking care of an animal. And I don't feel like that we ever want to say, I'm sorry y'all, there's no more space. You know, and we're currently doubling and tripling animals in a pen, and as we keep promoting agriculture across the state of Georgia, at some point we're not going to have enough room. And that's where we're hoping maybe now we can start with phase 1 to start the design to get ready to handle that in the future years. We also, with this barn, a lot of world horse shows travel to different states every year. We have MBHA Youth World, which is a very large barrel horse show that calls Perry, Georgia home. They do not travel to different states every year. They come back to us every year. The year before last, we had the largest equine event the facility has ever had, renting out over 2,300 stalls. Last year, they were down 15, so we were still right at 2,300. I was on a conference call this week. They would like to grow their program, and they do not want to leave the state of Georgia, and we don't want them to leave the state of Georgia. They bring a lot to Middle Georgia from all over the country. These barns that we are proposing for the small animal species, we can actually take those pens out and put horse stalls in those barns, in the small animal species barns, when these shows come. And I mean, so it will have a dual purpose. It will help our youth have a place to show their project, but it is also a rental space for us for the shows that we actually make money on that come to our facility. So.
Representative Tarby.
Just quickly, goat, pig, sheep, everything under that. That includes chickens, rabbits, open rabbits. What do you consider small?
We're considering small goats and pigs.
Goats and pigs.
Goats and pigs and sheep and lamb. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. That's what we consider our small species. At the state show here in February, we put the goats and lambs on the other side of the facility in horse stalls and in that arena, and then the kids who have maybe are showing multiple species, they're trying to get from there to the other side where their pigs are. And with this new addition, we will be able to keep the small species over there together where they can.
But then if you've got a horse show going on or a cattle show, you can then remove the stall and make it harder to tie out.
Yes, sir. Okay. Yes, sir. It would be a multi-purpose. And we currently, with our sheep and swine 1 and 2, currently now, when Youth World, NBHA Youth World comes, we currently take all of the pig and sheep pens out and put vinyl stalls in those. And so to the increased number of horses in the past 2 years, we've been taking a practice pen and we've been putting vinyl stalls in the center of a practice pen, and we've almost had the practice pen filled.
I want to take this opportunity to brag on them. I've had the opportunity to be in Houston, Denver, Kansas City.
Yes, sir.
Denver, Louisville. Y'all have done an excellent job with that facility down there. Really,
thank you.
We had our national junior Gilby show there several years back, and it was very nice. And it's getting better every year. Y'all have done an excellent job with that.
Thank you, sir.
Or somebody has.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you so much for coming.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Soil and water. Well, Mr. Attaway, thank you. How many times have you been here? I remember the first time you came, but you've just grown up so much.
Well, I appreciate that, and I also appreciate your help with me growing up in this.
Well, you're doing a good job.
There was a time I was wondering if I ever would.
Oh, well, I knew you'd do good. I knew, and you have.
Well, thank you for the kind words, Madam Chair, and it is a pleasure to be with you and the committee this morning. As far as our amended budget for 23, I believe we can be found on the bottom of your first page, section 13.8. We have no adjustments suggested by the governor, and we're not here to make any request beyond that. Madam Chair, though, I would like to take the opportunity that I have here for a couple minutes to give this committee some updates on what we have been doing. You've been very influential in us being able to do some of these things. So I would just like to take the time to report back to you what we have been doing. So the biggest thing for us in our FY23 budget was 10 new positions. We have hired 9 of those. The 10th will start the 1st of February, so we're excited to have all those on board. That has allowed us to put new offices in Albany, Soperton, and Milledgeville, as well as expand our Calhoun and Athens office. Before that funding last year, I kind of joked off to the side that we were the North Georgia Soil and Water Conservation Commission because we had no staff below Macon. So now we're able to expand that, allow quicker response time to our local municipalities, our local soil and water conservation districts, and just the citizens of Georgia in general. Speaking of our districts, they were also fortunate enough to receive an increase in funding in last year's budget. I'm happy to announce that all those districts have either put on or have one planned an outreach or field day event to let their local constituents know what they've been up to and educate them on the natural resources in their area and the conservation efforts that are going on. We're also have established school programs with our staff where they're in schools educating elementary and middle school age kids about the importance of conserving the state's natural resources. Moving on, we are outside of the districts and the conservation work we do with them. We have 3 other main focuses within the agency. The watershed dams is a big one for us. The state owns 357 dams. The local soil and water conservation districts are the easement holder to those dams. So we help them maintain those dams. In the past 18 months, we have maintained 50. This is important to us because up until FY21, we had no maintenance funds just to go out and do routine maintenance on these dams. So we're excited to be able to do that. We've also inspected 129 dams. This is a step up for us. Madam Chair, I believe last year I reported we had inspected 40. Now we're up to 100, almost 130, and prior to FY22, there was none inspected. We've had 2 more dams permitted since the last time I was in front of this committee, with 2 major rehabs in progress currently. We will continue our studies to see if we can get more dams permitted and more maintenance work in the spring. As y'all know, this is kind of a wet time of year, so we try to hold off on the maintenance jobs, if at all possible, till spring comes in and we get a little bit more drier conditions to be out on those dams. The picture you see there on the 3rd page is just a routine pipe inspection we've been doing with our partners at NRCS. We can temporarily plug that pipe, and the little mechanism you see sitting on top of it's actually a little robot with a camera on it, so we can drive up there and record what's going on with the pipe and see if there's anything that we need to be aware of or take control of there. On your 4th page, it's just simply 2 pictures. On your left-hand side, there is a dam before we perform the maintenance jobs. You see the trees up on the dams. That is outside of the Safe Dams rules and regulations. We do not like the trees growing on the dams. The root systems gets in there, and all of our dams are earthen-based, so the root systems can cause cracks in the dams. And like I said, we've been fortunate to get in there and perform those tasks. And on the right-hand side, you see that job complete with established vegetation on the dam. Another big area for us is our rural water resources, where we focus on ag water quality. And a couple of things we do there is we get a lot of calls with people have issues, I think because a couple things. They're a little afraid to maybe call an agency that has regulatory power that might get them in trouble in what we see. And of course, if there is issues there, we respond accordingly to the necessary agency. But we're also able to go out and give some technical advice, maybe point them in directions with some potential funding to help them with situations, or give them some tips that will correct the situation. We assist EPA and EPD with the Georgia's Non-Point Source Management Plan in 2 ways. We receive grant funds through those 2 agencies to do watershed management planning, where we'll hire an engineering firm to go determine what's causing issues within that particular watershed, and then follow back up with implementation cost shares for our ag producers. And of course, we have the Agriculture Best Management Practice Manual, so our producers know when we suggest doing this practice, they have a frame of reference to go back and make sure they're doing it correctly. We're in the very beginning stages of revamping that manual. It's been 10 years since it's had a facelift, so to speak. So we've had our first stakeholders meeting with various industry professionals, and are preparing their notes and drafts for a second draft, and hoping in the next coming month or so we can get those guys back together and put a good solid draft together and move forward putting this together. Also in ag water quality, we've started a series of workshops. We'll complete 12 by the end of the year. We started our first 2, and outside of our normal field days that we conduct with the districts, this is really a how-to participate in state programs or USDA programs that they offer. And the hope is, after a morning with us and our professional speakers, our producers are aware and understand how to apply for the opportunities that are out there. On your 6th page, you'll just see pictures of some of the stuff we're able to partner with our ag producers with to implement: stack houses, watering trough, keeping our cattle out of the streams, and various pictures of that sort. Our last department is erosion and sediment control. Obviously busy in there. One of the main things, outreach events we do there, is we host Erosion Day in Athens every year, and average about 275 attendees, where we put manufacturers of best management practices together with the guys that are out in the field every day, and they have a chance to communicate and talk back and forth, and it's been well received in the past 4 or 5 years that we've been doing that. We've implemented a local issuing authority training. These are the folks at the local level that are they're overseeing the sites on these developments. So since we review the plans and put out the manual for erosion and sediment control, we want them to understand what's in there. So this is our opportunity to help train those guys along. On pace to certify another 10,000 individuals that are in the Land Disturbance Act industry. And of course, Madam Chair, you know, a big thing that's got a lot of attention over the past couple of years is the review of the erosion and sediment control plans. So far this year, we reviewed about 1,800, on pace to review over 3,000 a year. Happy to report we're averaging about a 14 to 17 day turnaround, which is about half of what we've averaged in the past. And that's due to my staff doing a very good job, and it's due to this committee understanding that we needed some support and some help and some funding to get that taken care of. Madam Chair, that concludes my report. I'll happily stand for any questions and look forward to continuing to work with you and your committee.
Do I have any questions? Thank you, and keep up the good work.
Yes, ma'am.
Georgia Forestry Commission. Well, welcome back, Commissioner Moore. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. It's great to be back. Great to be here with you and your committee today. And I did notice that Vice Chairman Gerald Green was newly appointed, and I reached out to him this morning congratulating him, and he did share with me today. It was his birthday, by the way.
I forgot it.
And he's not able to be with us today, but great addition to your committee, and look forward to working with him as Vice Chairman and with your other committee members as well. So I'm going to load up this presentation here. I don't know if y'all remember this, but last week Kirby Smart reminded us not to get complacent. So I just want to say, go Dogs. We still got national champions. So that's a good thing. So I'm not complacent in that. and I hope you see that throughout my presentation today. So I just want to spend a few minutes with you and give you an update on our agency and some of the things that are going on there, some of the things I'm really proud of our team. And then I want to touch base on some of the items that were important to this committee last year, important enough that you gave us the resources to, excuse me there. Important enough to give us the resources to implement and to to carry out through our organization, and just want to give you an update on those, and then I will move on into what is included in the amended fiscal year 23 budget from the governor's recommendations, and we'll walk through that. But real quick, just an update on our operations. Really 4 key areas here. I could spend all day talking about the work that our agency does, but I want to talk about our protection group. Those are the guys and gals that wake up every day to protect our forests from wildfires. We served over 6,300 landowners, 4,400 fire breaks, and 1,900 burn assists this year. Responded to about 2,800 wildfires, totaling about 20,000 acres, below average, our 5-year average for the state, but still challenging conditions given where we're at as an agency with inexperience and with new employees. So one thing I am really proud about, and something to report out to this committee and to this body, is that 1.4 million acres of prescribed burning was done across our state, and that's a 7-year high. And we know that through our permitting process, that we issue silviculture permits out to landowners that are doing burning, and then we also do assistance on those burnings. 8,200 landowners in our state have been visited by our foresters this past year, and we've looked at visually 400,000 plus acres of land, and given management advice and management assistance on to those private landowners on best management practices and how they can manage their forest land better. Interestingly enough, over the last 2 years, 1 million acres has been looked at by our team. And I think that's quite an accomplishment, considering that our state is made up of 24 million acres of forest land and 37 million acres of timber of land as a total. Our marketing utilization group works extremely hard every day. I'm proud to tell you that Georgia is still the #1 forestry state in the nation, and that's something that we all ought to be proud of, and it's something that I know our team is proud of, and we believe we're a contributing factor to that. $41.3 billion economic engine for our state, according to the Georgia Tech study that was released late last year. That's 5.5%, almost 6% increase from 2020. So forestry is still a major economic driver and a major economic piece of our state. It is the #1 it's the #1 in manufacturing. It has the highest compensation for its employees, and Georgians have earned $4.4 billion this past year, those that are working in the forestry sector. Firefighter property screening program. I know that's important to this committee, and since 2012, we've screened over $107 million from federal military bases that have gone to fire departments and have come back to our agency. And these are often first-line fire trucks, heavy equipment that that counties need and fire departments need, and that our agency needs. And you see the breakdown there: $73 million to fire departments and $34 million back to our agency. A really strong program for us, a really great opportunity for us to add value back to communities all around the state. Operational initiatives that this committee worked on last year and that we've implemented this year, I just want to touch base with you, and then I'll sum it all up pretty quick. You funded this legislature and the governor agreed to fund a strategic initiatives director for us to respond to the forest protection audit. Thomas Farmer is here with me today. We hired him last September, brought him on board, and we are well on track to have that response back by late summer or early fall to that audit. So really moving forward in that capacity. We implemented a Ranger career pathway there. You see the details of that. And we, at the same time, aligned our existing Forest Ranger workforce to that career path. I just want to point out here on this slide the target of 25 in 2024, and I'll just keep that in your mind, and we'll touch base on that again on the next slide. But we had a target of reducing our turnover to 20 to 25 in that Ranger workforce, or that Ranger classification, by 24, and we estimated that would be a $1.2 million savings to the agency. Just keep that in mind. I'll touch base. And then we also looked at Chief Ranger Efficiency Strategic Planning Session, where we looked at efficiencies and ways to make our agency more streamlined, and really proud of the work that we've done there, and we're continuing to do some work on that front. We actually aligned our Chief Ranger, which is our county supervisor position, with their responsibility and rewarded them for their responsibility. You see the bullets there as far as how that was justified. And then we took a strong stance on employee safety and employee engagement. We hear a lot about compensation and how that drives people's, I guess, that's critical to them, and it's important to them, and I agree. It is our employees, and it's important that our employees have the resources to support their families, and to do that well. But I'm also a believer that we've got to make the workplace, and we've got to engage with our workers very well, and promote safety. And we've done that extremely well this year. We've done it through a safety campaign. You see here, safety is our anchor point. Personal and professional development, which was here, and we've allocated over half of those funds, so we're tracking along to meet that objective. And then we continue to support our wildland firefighters with paying them as soon as they get back from federal incidents. And so what's the impact of that, and what is the impact of what this body and what the governor did last year in investing in our employees? And I just want to point out this small chart on the bottom of this. Last year at this time in fiscal year 22, we had received 60 resignations from our Ranger position. Today we've received 35. There's a variance of 25, and if you remember that number on the previous slide. So I just want to point that out. I'm cautiously optimistic that we're heading in the right direction. I'm also a data guy, and I also realize when you look at things at one data point, it's dangerous. I think what this tells us is we're progressing and we're moving in the right direction with what this body is doing and what some of these initiatives that we've implemented over this last year. We're moving in the right direction, but to steal another analogy from the great Kirby Smart and our Governor Kemp, we've got to keep chopping. We can't get complacent, and that is our focus and our goal. So I'll stop there on those achievements, and then I just want to touch base on the budget proposal. We're very fortunate that the governor has included in his recommendations to allocate $830,000 to purchase some leased vehicles, and this is really as a result of supply chain issues and the inability to get new trucks, and the inability of us to purchase new trucks on the marketplace, as well as the inability of our state contractor who manages the fleet lease program, their inability to get us trucks to extend the lease program. So we're grateful for that. We ask for your support. That will be a huge disruption to our operations if we're not granted that. And then also an increase for our operation for fire protection of over $500,000, and that's strictly being driven by inflation. We have 300 pieces of equipment. We have 300 diesel trucks that pull our forest fire protection units around the state, and so far they're not electrified. They still run on diesel, and we are experiencing those pressures just as well as many people across our state are experiencing in their private businesses. Just some detail on this. Won't spend a lot of time on this chart. This is something that you can look at, but it's the data that supports that fuel proposal. Fiscal year 23 fuel usage is up 18%. Our fuel costs are up 63% to date. And then not only are we seeing the inflationary increases, we're experiencing a greater demand and a greater call for our services at the same time. So wildfire response to date for fiscal year 23, our response, we've had 84% more fires than we did last year at this time, and then we've also offered 43% more services to landowners to date than we did last year at this time. So sort of a double whammy there for us, but really proud. That service activity is something I'm really proud of. We've stressed to our team to reach out to landowners and to really deliver and execute on delivering services, and we're off to a great start for this fiscal year, and I look forward to us finishing out very strong as an agency. Operational risk going forward is really just still, it's our salary, wage inflation, and those opportunities. We continue to manage that as hard as we can and as well as we can as an agency. I think we're making some strides in our workforce, but I go back to our point, we can't get complacent. We got to keep our foot on the gas, and we really have to manage through the last few years of turnover that we've experienced in an agency. And what that means for us is that we've just got some inexperience in the field, and the work that we do is dangerous, and the work that we do is critical to our state. So we're still managing that and still working through that. And, you know, all I ask for your favorable consideration and support for those budget recommendations. And I would just say that, you know, our purpose and our mission here at the agency is to continue to add value, and the resources that you give us is really the fuel that we need to be able to deliver the services to the state that allows us to be recognized as a leader in our in the country in forestry. So it's a great honor to serve, and it's a great honor to be with you this morning, Madam Chair, and I'll be glad to pause there and take any questions.
Representative Carvin.
Yes, a few years ago, did you call on me? I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry. A few years ago, for a better lack of choice of words, protection of our operators, we capped dozers and that type. We were upgrading that, and tell me where we stand on percentage-wise, and on moving the heavy equipment. We had some problems with bigger trucks, and how we stand on that now.
You've got a great memory there, Representative Tarvin, and one thing as I'm looking at you, and I'm embarrassed by this, but I'm okay with it, and owning that embarrassment, is that Michelle Gray is on our team, and she's sitting right behind you. And Michelle put a lot of this information together for me. So Michelle, raise your hand and let everybody see you. She's our CFO for the commission. So we looked at those numbers in cab tractors for our employees. We're at 68%. Is that correct, Michelle? Yeah, we're at 68% for enclosed cab, environmental cabs for these for our employees that are out in smoke and dust and in the natural environment, and from objects coming into the cab. So, you know, great work being done. We have 15 tractors coming that this body funded in a combination of 2 years ago and a year ago. We have yet to receive those, by the way, because of supply chain, but those 15 will be environmental cab as well. We expect to start receiving those this month, February, in-house, but it's just been supply chain issues with that. But trucks, I think we're doing okay. You guys funded us for 8 of those as well, and 8 low-boy tractor trailers, so to pull those. But great question.
Thanks, sir.
Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner, thank you for the presentation. Just wondering, on the burner system, the prescribed burning, for private landowners. Is there a cost to the private landowner for that assistance?
Yes, sir, there's a cost in there, and it's built that we just recover our expense back for our time and for our materials that we use on those burns. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
But we are well below market, and we have a long list of folks that are wanting us to come out and do that work, and that's how I know we're well below market.
I've got a friend that needs it.
Well, I tell you, prescribed burning really does help, and even though we might be below market, it keeps a lot of forest fires down.
Oh yeah, it's a key tool for mitigation tool, correct? Yeah. So fire protection comes in a couple buckets in my mind. It comes in suppression and it comes in mitigation. In prescribed fire, there's no better mitigation tool.
Any other questions? I want to ask you, I noticed you had two things asked for in the amended budget. Which one of these is your number one priority? The vehicles or increased operation expenses for fire protection?
You won't take both, Madam Chairwoman?
If you had to pick one, what is your number one? If we couldn't fund both of them this time.
I mean, the vehicles would be, I mean, that's a huge disruption. When you start talking about 20 vehicles out of the fleet,
yeah.
Would be huge, but both of these are equally important to us.
Both
but if I had, I mean, if I had to fund,
seem real, I don't know how you choose between the two.
Yes, ma'am. I mean, operational. I mean, when you start, the operational expenses are. I mean, and I've got the facts to show you that we're experiencing that because of inflated fuel cost. Yes, that's why we were so appreciative. We actually included 4 priorities to the governor's office, and these were where he landed on in his proposal.
These are both funded in the budget?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
I thought these were different asks.
No, ma'am, these are not different asks.
I don't have the budget. No, okay,
yes, these are included in the governor's proposal.
As long as they're included in the budget, I thought these were asked.
No, ma'am.
My mistake.
No, ma'am, these are included.
I don't have a copy of the budget right here in a minute. And a lot of people have had asked.
No, ma'am, these are not asked. These are included in the governor's budget, and we ask for your favorable consideration.
Okay. No problem.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the job you're doing.
Glad to do it. Absolutely.
Patricia Pridemore, Commissioner Pridemore. It's Public Safety Commission.
Yes, ma'am. It's good to see you, Madam Chair.
Nice to see you.
Yes.
Tom, welcome.
Good morning, members of the committee. I want to talk with you today about the Georgia Public Service Commission, where I am proud to serve as a statewide elected commissioner as well as chairman of the staff and the other 4 commissioners. We work very hard every single solitary day to create a safe, reliable, and affordable utility system across the state. Giving some recap to 2022, it was the busiest year on record for the Commission with a Georgia Power Integrated Resource Plan rate case, monitoring of the construction at Plant Vogel, where Unit 3 is scheduled to come online the end of April, Unit 4 is scheduled to come online the end of this year, an Atlantic Gas Light rate review, and others, including our 4 regular meetings that we hold every month, 2 committee hearings, as well as 2 administrative hearing sessions. Over the past several years, we have described a need for more personnel to better complete the mission of the agency. We are now fully staffed at 84 employees, and I want to thank this subcommittee for your support and assistance with that. Just last year, we were able to hire 7 positions, engineers, inspectors, and an additional attorney that helps us with the additional workload that we have. As you can imagine, with all the growth in the state, whether it be from new economic development projects to just the population growth, there has been more work by utilities than they can remember in the last several decades. And so for our pipeline safety unit, that means more inspections, more calls to come out and do the work before the utilities are able to go in and site the necessary areas. Really want to thank you for all of that support. That helps us get more federal money into the state. It helps us with our federal scoring, as well as it helps us create a safer utility system. We have done a lot to be able to significantly reduce ratepayer obligations over the last several years, particularly on the Plant Vogtle case, with adjustment of ROE there, with a net savings of $1.7 billion to Georgia ratepayers. The 2 additional positions that I just mentioned in the call before you dig investigators, that is equated to additional $412,000 into the state treasury. Again, these are not investigators that are going out and looking for problems. This is the number of tickets that get logged with the agency, and they're able to process those tickets so much faster. Last year, the General Assembly graciously provided the PSC $379,000 for an electronic filing system. This is the first of the kind that we've ever had at the Commission. We had a rudimentary FTP system that was built internally, and this puts us in line with other state agencies that do judicial-like work. Since the FY21 budget, a total of $305,540 in legal fees have been secured by the Commission for the Secretary of State's office in the ongoing PSC lawsuit. That lawsuit was logged against the Secretary of State regarding the PSC voting districts. An additional $203,000 in attorney's fees, we are expecting to receive the bill for that soon. The case is currently before the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, and we are waiting on the 3-judge panel to rule on that. The amended FY23 budget is set to cover these fees for the Commission, but it does go back to the Attorney General's office for the external legal support that they've secured. And lastly, considering that energy is not just a Georgia issue that is of national conversation, or is a state conversation, but also national conversation, we have been in need of late for additional security. So we have had our hearings not only interrupted, but we've had to stop them in the past. We haven't had any on-site security before this year. Just this summer, we had someone who attached themselves to our hearing room doors, which created a fire liability and, of course, an overall security liability. The State Highway Patrol has been providing these services for us in just a friendly phone call, just because we've just needed the help. And so to do this, though, we know that we've got to secure some additional support from off-duty officers, and so we're asking for $47,840 to be able to cover those pending costs for 2023. So I have more detail on all of these items if anyone is interested. But again, thank you so much to this committee. We really appreciate you working with the PSC.
Okay, let me clarify something. So really, the only thing y'all asking for is the $47,000, because this Public Service Commission is not the person being sued. They're just the one that's having to ante up the money.
Yes, ma'am.
So y'all had absolutely nothing to do with the way the maps were drawn.
No, ma'am.
Any other Representative Harbin?
Yes. Mr. How are you?
Hi, I'm well, Representative Tarvin. Hope you are.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but you know, of course, we had this vibration problem when it started at 3 last month. It was delayed in April. But you know, when we hear everyone speak here, I can't imagine being in business or trying to run a business now when you hear of things like 40% turnover rate in the health situation. We used to, if we'd had a 40% turnover rate years ago, and retraining would put us out of business. So how are we on, and I know this is more, maybe not in you guys' bailiwick as much as it would be Georgia Power, but we also have staffing problems even in places like Plant Vogtle, I think, and do you hear anything about how they facing that? Because it's caused some delays.
Yes, sir. Workforce issues at Plant Vogel have been a part of the project since the very beginning, even back to the time when I ran workforce development for the state of Georgia many years ago. But I will tell you that through the support that Georgia Power and that the PSC oversees with Georgia Power, we've received a good deal of support from organized labor. And they have been on site to be able to fully staff those projects and staff them at the appropriate time. So where you need electricians at one point in time on Unit 3, you may not need them for Unit 4 yet. And so really their ability to organize people from not only across the Southeast but the country to come in and work on the project has aided and assisted it greatly. As for the 2 pipes that are under consideration for the current issue with the project and that are being replaced, the company briefed the commission in an open hearing on Tuesday, and I can tell you as this commissioner, I feel confident that Southern Nuclear and Georgia Power have the situation under management. The units have already loaded fuel. The unit has already loaded fuel, and because that fuel load has already taken place, they're at the point in the project where every safety mechanism is now being tested. So this is not in plant operation, but this is in safety remediation. So I feel confident that they've got a good grasp on this. I also feel confident based upon our investigators that have been on site at Plant Vogel say repeatedly that Unit 4 is so much further ahead. One of them actually said on the stand on Tuesday how, quote, he's so impressed with how Unit 4 is progressing. So I think they are doing a good job of taking the knowledge and lessons learned off Unit 3 and translating that over Unit 4.
And Unit 4 is supposed to be on this fall, correct?
Yes, sir, by the end of the fall.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr.
Any other questions? Thank you, and thank you for the job y'all are doing, and hopefully you've got all your employees and not having turnover like you were before.
We are, ma'am, and we've got a great HR director in Lynn Page. We've been doing recruitment. Thank you. Thank you so much for all your support for us.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, and thank you all for coming, and have a nice weekend.